Yeah, so Carrington is a dirty player, probably the dirtiest player in the league. And then she has the audacity to go online right after her ejection and claim that she got ejected because of racism.
Happening right now. DiJonai Carrington is looking around the room like, oh my God, I've never been in this much fire.
DiJonai Carrington may have turned one hard foul into a much bigger problem off the court.
Oh, DiJonai, you hit her in the head and you drew blood. It was a flagrant 2. You should have been ejected.
After getting ejected for hitting Sophie Cunningham, Carrington posted white privilege and tagged the Indiana Fever. The post exploded.
And to call that a white privilege-based foul is to completely undermine the term of white privilege.
Emmanuel Acho called her out, and now Reebok is being pulled into the controversy. Reports claim the company could be ready to move on from Carrington, but the crazy part, the foul itself might not be what puts her endorsement money at risk.
Here's Cunningham up ahead of the field, lays it in, plus the foul, and then Cunningham gets into the face of DiJonai Carrington.
The whole mess started when Sophie Cunningham got the ball in transition and took off toward the basket. She had a clear path to the rim, and Carrington was chasing from behind, trying to stop the easy bucket. But instead of getting the ball, Carrington's arm came across Cunningham's head and jaw area. Cunningham went down hard, the basket still counted, and the whole arena immediately changed. Cunningham got back up and confronted Carrington, and players from both teams quickly stepped in before the situation turned into an even bigger fight. The officials reviewed the play and upgraded the foul to a flagrant 2, sending Carrington to the locker room. The officials called the contact unnecessary and excessive. Coach Stephanie White said she didn't believe Carrington intentionally went for Cunningham's neck, but she understood the ejection. At that point, this could have been a simple basketball story. Hard foul, flagrant 2, ejection. Everybody argues about it for a day. Then Carrington picked up her phone, and that's when everything got messy. After being ejected, Carrington posted 2 words on social media: white privilege. She also tagged the Indiana Fever. That's it. No long explanation, no context, just those 2 words right after getting ejected for hitting Cunningham. And obviously, people immediately connected the post to what had just happened. Carrington had just been ejected after hitting Cunningham, who is white. So many people assumed Carrington was saying race played a role in the foul or the decision to eject her. But Carrington later said that wasn't what she meant. She explained that she never said the foul itself was white privilege. Her argument was that people had made that connection on their own, and that the post was part of a bigger conversation about race and sports. But here's the problem: the timing was terrible. You post white privilege immediately after getting ejected for hitting a white player, and people are obviously going to connect those 2 things. That's not exactly a difficult conclusion to understand. And once the internet picked that interpretation, there was no putting the toothpaste back in the tube. This is where Emmanuel Acho entered the conversation. Acho is a former NFL player who became a well-known sports media personality, so his reaction carried a lot more weight than a random comment from somebody online. His criticism was mainly about the message and the timing. He argued that Carrington's post created the impression that the foul or ejection was connected to race, even though she hadn't explained what she actually meant. And Acho didn't just attack Carrington personally, he made a point of separating criticism of her actions from attacking her as a person. But Carrington wasn't interested in letting the criticism slide. She responded to Acho, saying he was making an assumption about what she meant. She also defended her understanding of the subject and pointed to her education when pushing back against his criticism. And just like that, we weren't talking about basketball anymore. We had a flagrant 2, a race controversy, a social media argument, and one of the biggest sports media personalities in the country involved. And Reebok was attached to Carrington the entire time. Then Cunningham gave her side, and honestly, she could have gone off. She had just been hit in the head during a fast break. She had confronted Carrington on the court. Then she saw Carrington's white privilege post afterward. But Cunningham didn't turn it into another huge fight. She said the league was handling the foul and rejected the idea that race had anything to do with what happened. She also pointed out that she'd been ejected for a similar play in the past and believed she deserved that punishment. That response put Carrington in an awkward position because now the play player who actually took the hit was saying, basically, this wasn't about race, and that made the whole thing even more confusing. Carrington was explaining what she didn't mean. Cunningham was trying to move on, and the internet was still arguing. That's when this stopped being just a WNBA controversy and started looking like a business problem. Carrington isn't only a basketball player, she's also a Reebok athlete. The company signed her to a multi-year partnership in 2025 as part of its return to basketball. Carrington had a strong resume behind her too. She was the 2024 WNBA Most Improved Player and made the All-Defensive First Team. Reebok was clearly betting on her as one of the recognizable faces of its basketball comeback, and this wasn't some forgotten deal sitting in a drawer. Carrington was featured in Reebok's basketball campaign alongside Angel Reese, showing that the company was still using her as part of its basketball marketing strategy. That makes the current controversy a lot more serious, because now Carrington's name isn't just connected to a basketball foul, it's connected to a viral social media post, a public argument with Emmanuel Acho, and a growing debate about her physical style of play. That's a lot for a brand to deal with. Now here's where we need to separate the facts from the internet rumors. There are reports claiming Reebok is considering dropping Carrington. People are already talking like the contract is finished and the money is gone, but there still hasn't been an official confirmation that Reebok has terminated the partnership. So don't treat the "she lost her Reebok deal" headline as confirmed fact. The reported possibility is what makes this interesting, because if Reebok really is considering cutting ties, the company isn't just looking at one foul, it's looking at the entire situation. The foul, the post, the backlash, the argument with Acho, and now the additional criticism surrounding Carrington's physical play. For a brand, that's a completely different calculation. Here's something fans sometimes forget. A brand isn't just paying an athlete because they're good at basketball. They're paying for the athlete's image. Reebok wants to sell shoes. It wants people looking at Carrington and thinking about basketball, performance, style, and the brand. It doesn't want every post about its athlete to turn into a debate about race, controversy, or whether the athlete should be punished. And that's where the pressure gets real, because even if Carrington believes she was misunderstood, Reebok still has to look at how the public sees the situation. That's how sponsorships work. It's not always about who's right, sometimes it's about risk. And brands hate risk when they don't know where the story is going. You'd think the Cunningham incident would have been enough, but then Carrington found herself under more criticism during Chicago's game against Golden State. She was involved in physical plays involving Cecilia Zandalasini and Tiffany Hayes, which brought the Cunningham controversy right back into the conversation. Now, people weren't just debating one foul anymore. They were asking whether Carrington's physical style had become a bigger issue, and that's dangerous for a player trying to protect her reputation, because one hard foul can be explained, one controversial play can be explained, but when more incidents happen soon after, people start looking for a pattern. Recent reporting also highlighted the renewed criticism surrounding Carrington after those plays, and whether you agree with that criticism or not, that's the conversation happening around her right now. This is where the Reebok situation could become much bigger than one endorsement. Let's say the company eventually decides to end the partnership. The biggest problem might not even be the money Carrington loses immediately. It could be what happens next. Other brands are watching. They see the foul, they see the social media controversy, they see the argument with Acho, they see the new physical incidents, and they're gonna ask themselves one simple question: do we want our brand attached to this? That's how endorsement careers can change. You don't always lose every deal overnight. Sometimes the bigger problem is that the next deal never arrives. That's why this situation matters for Carrington. Her basketball talent isn't suddenly gone. Her awards aren't gone. Her career isn't over, but her commercial image is taking a hit, and that's something she can't ignore. And to be fair, Carrington is still a talented basketball player. She's a former Most Improved Player. She's an all-defensive player. Reebok didn't sign her for no reason. There is real value in her game, but there's also another part of being a professional athlete that doesn't show up in the box score. Knowing when to stop, knowing when not to respond, knowing when your phone is making the situation worse. And right now, Carrington probably doesn't need another online argument. She needs the story to cool down, because every new post gives people another headline, and when sponsors are watching, that's the last thing you want. So is DiJonai Carrington really about to lose millions? We don't know exactly how much money is at stake, and Reebok hasn't officially confirmed that the partnership is over, but the pressure around the deal is clearly part of the story now. The foul started everything. The white privilege post made it much bigger. Emmanuel Acho's criticism kept the debate going. Cunningham's response gave the other side of the story, and the later physical incidents gave critics even more to talk about. Now Carrington has a choice. She can keep fighting every person who disagrees with her, or she can let the noise die down and remind everyone why Reebok wanted her in the first place. Because basketball careers are built on what you do on the court, but endorsement careers? Those can change because of what happens after you leave it. So, what do you think? Should Reebok continue backing DiJonai Carrington, or has this situation become too much for a major brand? Because if Reebok really does walk away, the biggest loss might not be the first check she misses. It might be the next endorsement that never comes.